the way that there is a reception centre for asylum seekers where they're supposed to go when they come into the country, if there is room, and that is an open area where they can come and go. But the detention centre is another organisation in which the Cypriot government departments, the immigration especially, and the police keep the migrants in there, usually pending deportation. And the period of time can be very long, and we know of cases of 4 or 5 years where people have been kept in detention, partly because they couldn't get a passport. You know, for example, we know from the Iranian case where he was put in detention pending deportation, and this went on and on and on because they just couldn't get a passport. If they get a passport, they have to only go back to Iran, so there's no point in getting an Iranian passport. So he was really stateless, and instead of letting him free and letting him work for a living, they kept him there in prison circumstances. They did feed him, but it was a detention, certainly no exit from there. And this man was psychologically affected and so on, naturally, and many of them are. After a year, it's definitely impossible to be a normal person again. So eventually they did let him out with a kind lawyer who found an action for habeas corpus pro bono and managed to get him released. And the government had to let him go. But many times we have Supreme Court decisions and still the authorities don't necessarily follow those decisions. In this case they let him go, but they didn't give him a permit to remain in Cyprus. So the whole cycle started again, and he was prone to being put back in there again. So it's a farce in a way. And these sort of things, the amount of money that's spent on that is 800 euros a week. And if we had half that amount of money, he would be not even half a quarter of that amount of money. He could easily survive outside the detention centre and in a much happier frame of mind. So we don't understand what the detention centre is. The same thing applies to students. College students are put in there when they want to go back and they don't have the ticket to go home. And they don't have the ticket to go home because the principal of the college is holding that money, which was paid beforehand for him to go back, and he's not willing to give the money unless the police arrest and detain that person. So they put these young students in prison ready for deportation. When they say they're going to deport, then it seems these colleges may release the return ticket, which of course the person who is wrong there is the colleges, nothing to do with the student, but the student is penalized and put in detention in prison-like conditions. And again, it depends on his passport, etc. You were asking me, how do we help the migrants in Cyprus? We, Caritas Cyprus, are made up entirely of volunteers, and we work through the different parishes, mostly the Latin Catholic parishes in Cyprus, where we have many volunteers who are willing to help the cause of the migrants. So we are on the street in the sense that migrants know we can help them on any matter, and they come to us in our churches or by word of mouth eventually, because that's what happens. So we help the domestic workers, mothers with children, students, etc. And that's at one level. We help them with food, clothing, shelter, medication and household goods as much as we can with the limited resources we collect, which we collect from donations and events that the good churches come up with from now and then. We also provide accommodation as much as we can, but we would love to do more. And we feel that if we had funds, we could easily set up our own form of shelter in some way by renting out all these properties which are not being used nowadays. We also work with the government departments as much as we can. We accompany our migrants to the various government departments, because the problem there is not just its language, it's also language is a great problem, and the fact is that even the people in the government departments don't really know the intricacies of each particular case. They just club it all together as migrants. We don't want them, they must go back, and they're taking our jobs. So it's very important to pursue somebody's rights in a proper way with the government departments and not to be pushed away, because that's what happens if they go on their own. We've also helped to commence litigation, for many of them are not paid their salaries visas expire and they have to go back, so they go back without any money. And this is a big scandal, really. But we're trying to help, trying to file actions before they go, etc. And then we have the cases of applications for nationality. We've been trying to get nationality for people who've been in Cyprus for 20 years. Even. I've got a case where the person was in Cyprus married to a Cypriot for 20 years, a South American. The son even served in the Cypriot army and has still been refused nationality. So if her marriage breaks down at any time, she will be deported, having lived there and brought up 3 children in Cyprus. So the injustices are large, and we try to help by moving then with the other NGOs who are involved in this field. The Ombudsman, who is a great help on all these issues and can see some of the facts in these, and tell us and help us with the facts in these cases. And also on another level, we go to the EU and the UNHCR. First of all, we are asking always for money, if we can get any, but also we help them with their reports as what is really happening in Cyprus. Sorry, did you want to talk about?
Okay.